All right, everybody, welcome to the September 9th work session for the Planning and Zoning Commission. We're going to start off tonight with introduction and a Q&A with our brand newish planning director, our PDS director, and this is Sean Wilson. So I'll let you take it away.
All right, President, Board, Commissioners, thanks for having me. I just wanted to stop in and make an introduction. Been about 6 weeks now, kind of going at it, been about 10 years at City of Boise. Before I was going to introduce myself, I was going to be Sean Wilson in Public Works, because for 10 years, that's what I've been saying to council members and everybody else. But super excited about being in PDS. A lot of my career, 6 years engineering, has been doing developments for public agencies, kind of all over the Northwest. So tons of experience doing entitlements, working with all sorts of jurisdictions, building permits, everything. Probably the most exciting thing for me is the modern zoning code. I think that's a huge step for Boise, and it's a big deal. And so when I made my sales pitch to the mayor and everybody about this job, I'm like, oh yes, an implementation person would be perfect for this. And I was like, hold on, I'm your person. This is what I do. I implement stuff. So anyways, with that, yeah, just super excited. Obviously, you know, our team members, we have the most fantastic team. Code compliance is coming over. Are you going to make it?
My apologies, Sean. I'm sorry about that.
Code compliance is coming over. So we have about 150 or so team members in the department. Yeah, and we just have great team, great senior staff, great managers like Crystal, and yeah, super excited. So wanted to introduce myself and take any questions from you. And yeah, I'll try to make appearances as I can. I'm hoping it's been a little bit kind of overwhelming, just meeting everybody, you know,
Sure.
trying to meet the team. Of course, our development community, they're interested in talking to me. I'm most interested in all the staff members because they're so awesome, trying to get to know them. But 6 weeks, I can't get through everything and everybody. But
Absolutely.
at
Yeah.
some point, I'm hoping to just kind of have one-on-ones and talk to each of the commission members.
Okay. Well, we look forward to that, Sean, for sure. Welcome. You're welcome here, of course, anytime. Anytime you have thoughts or comments or needs, you know, we're here to help. Do any questions for Sean? Anybody?
Mr. Chair,
Esther,
I
please.
do.
Mhm.
You said that enforcement is coming under. Please do share, like how, I mean, I can see the importance of it, especially as we move into the new modern zoning code, but yeah.
So historically, enforcement has been through Department of Finance and Administration, or DFA group. I'm not sure why it was there. The home for it really is planning and zoning, you know, working close with our building code official. So it's just a way to make the city a little more efficient. So it's part of a little bit larger reorg to just be more efficient. And so it's definitely a good move. We're super excited. They're excited. There's a lot of conversations, even building code, entitlements. I mean, just kind of all over the map within PDS, where code enforcement really has a nice fit. Like stay in the loop on a lot of things. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question all the way, but
Cool. Okay. Any other questions for Sean? Yeah, John, go ahead, please.
Sean, I got a question about process. I never find the time to, or the right venue to ask this question, but I think a couple of commissioners have mentioned this in testimony, you know, when we're Q&A and with the applicants and the community about what's our process internally for digesting things that we think need to be improved in the code, the new code, because we know we're going to run across things like, we got that not quite right.
so commission member, there's we are tracking that. And so, you know, you can't have that large of a document and have perfection. Just doesn't work. And so we're tracking sort of like where did we miss the periods? or where's a sentence and, that's doesn't totally make sense, or where the incentive's not working. We're just, right now it's data gathering. So it's been a little bit slow on how many submittals we've received on the new code. And I don't know the exact number, but so right now it's data gathering. I fully expect probably annual, maybe biannual, some sort of update for clarity, just so we can be as consistent as possible with the development community. Like, here's what we meant. It wasn't totally clear. So I don't know if does that answer your question?
Yeah, it sure does. I get a follow.
Yeah.
So based on your public works background, I know part of the new code was all about trying to, in the mixed use zones, in the transit corridors and transit oriented development and the infrastructure and density on those corridors. That's kind of the focus of the code, the way I understand it. But I remember some testimony from the public about there's not going to be enough infrastructure along those corridors. And I took that to be kind of short-sighted, but from an engineering perspective, what's your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. That is step 2. So implementation. If we're successful with what this code set out to be, we have to be prepared for what's coming for the next 20 to 40 years. And I think that really is that step we're working on right now. Like, if it grows, because it's city services, police, it's fire, library, internal services it impacts. I mean, it's schools, Veolia, like across the board, it impacts everybody. So next step. Yeah, that's the part I'm excited about with the code right now.
Yeah.
To be prepared, so that's not a surprise when it does happen.
Great, thanks.
Well, I know I have a running list of topics we've been running into with the new code, and you're absolutely right, Sean. Like, we've only had a handful of hearings with the new code, but certainly work to do to improve it. So I'm looking forward to that next step, right? I mean, when it comes next year or whenever that is, but I think that's where we can really start to refine some of the issues we're running into, when we hear issues here from the dais, right? Yeah. Once you get your feet settled, we'll let you get settled in,
Just
though.
give me 2 more weeks.
Yeah.
Then I'll have a solution.
Excellent. Any other questions? All right. I guess we're taking it easy on you.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you so much. I appreciate it. And thanks for letting me stop in for a quick visit.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you, Sean.
Well, and then I guess with your all's blessing, we can just get agenda review out of the way and then we can have a little break before we start the meeting. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great, Crystal. Let's do it.
Thank you, Sean. We really appreciate you stopping by. Okay, so this evening we should be pretty quick. I know things can happen, but we've just got the 3 hearing items tonight. But starting at the top of the agenda, we do have minutes, both work session and regular meeting from August 5th that we'll need to approve. And then we have item A, which is a time extension request for CUP 22-00025. That's at 1400 West Beacon Street. And it's a time extension for a CUP for a university building within 50 feet of the campus boundary on 0.68 acres in the U district. We are recommending approval, so we can try for consent on that.
Okay.
First hearing item 1 is CAR 24-7 for Gail Matsumoro. This is, all of these are modern zoning code for hearings. This is located at 900 and 908 North Whitewater Park Boulevard, and it's a rezone of just about 0.12 acres from R2 to R3 to remedy basically a split zone situation that had occurred. We are recommending approval, and we can try for consent on item 1. Item 2 is CAR 2410. And this is located at 787 and 793 East Park Center Boulevard. And it's a modification of a development agreement on approximately 1.6 acres in the MX1 DA, which is the mixed use neighborhood with development agreement zone. We are recommending approval, and so we can try for consent on item 2 as well. I do believe we had maybe a request for recusal. Yep.
Mr. Chair. I
Please.
worked on this project about a year ago or so on the Axiom project just south of that. Because it's all part of the DA.
Right,
I'll
right.
be recusing from that
Okay.
one.
Gotcha. Okay.
And if we do have to hear it and it's not just part of the consent, you can be free range, Jennifer, because we do have 5, but it will probably overgo consent, so. And then last but certainly not least, we've got item 3, which is CUP 2422. This is located at 1505 South Empire Way, and this is a modification as well of a conditional use permit to increase the maximum number of children allowed in an existing large child daycare on 0.27 acres in an R1C zone. We are recommending approval, but we did receive some neighborhood opposition, so we will be hearing that one this evening. So again, for trying on consent, we've got the 2 meeting minutes from August 5th. Item A, the time extension, and then the 2 public hearings, 1 and 2, and then we'd be hearing 3. Any questions?
All right. I think we're good, Crystal.
Enjoy your dinners.
All right. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you'll be called upon and unmuted. There is a chat function in Zoom. This is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begins with a presentation from the planning team. Then we'll go to the applicant and then the representatives of the neighborhood registered neighborhood association, then followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, then who signed up on the sign-up sheet in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually. If you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Crystal. Good evening, everybody. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by city council. We make final decisions on conditional use permits, variances and appeals, and recommendations to city council on subdivisions, rezones, annexations, and code or comprehensive plan amendments. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given either written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. That's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report and if there is no public opposition, the item is, the item is placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, and neighborhood association presentations, and then followed by public testimony. Thank you all for attending. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Here.
Danley, Gillespie, Moore,
Here.
Mooney,
Here.
Seha,
Here.
Torres,
Here.
Doan,
Here.
6 present, 2 absent.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. All right. Pretty short agenda this evening. We got a few things eligible for consent, so we'll start there. Without objection, I will place our work session meeting minutes from August 5th on the consent agenda, as well as the commission meeting minutes from August 5th. As far as new business is concerned, up first, eligible for consent is item A. This is CUP 22-25 Lombard Conrad Architects at 1400 West Beacon Street. This is a 2-year time extension request on a CUP for a university building within the campus boundary on 0.68 acres in the University District Zone. Without objection, this is just a straight time extension for that application. So without objection, I'm going to place that item on the consent agenda. And then moving along to item number 1 is CAR 24-7 Gail Matsumoro. The project address is 900 and 908 North Whitewater Park Boulevard. This is a rezone application of approximately 0.12 acres from R2 to R3. And is the applicant with us this evening? No applicant with us this evening, so we'll assume that they are in agreement with the staff report. Very good. Getting nods from staff. And is there anyone attending this evening in person or online that would like to testify in opposition to this item? No takers in person, no hands up online. So we'll go ahead and place item number 1 on the consent agenda. And last but not least, eligible for consent this evening is item number 2, which is CAR 24-10 Studio H Architects. Project address is 787 and 793 East Park Center Boulevard. This is a modification of a development agreement on approximately 1.6 acres in MX1 with a DA zone. The applicant is present. And are you all in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? My apologies. Thank you. Let the record show the applicant is in agreement with the staff report. And is there anyone attending hoping to testify in opposition to this item? Looks like no takers, so we'll go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, we got Mr. Berg is online. Sorry, Eric. I apologize. I was moving along too quickly there. Can he talk, or does he just need to unmute?
Yes, I'm here to speak in opposition.
Okay, very good. All right, thanks, Mr. Berg. We'll go ahead and hear item number 2. And I guess that wraps it up for consent. So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda at this point.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mooney.
I move that we place the following items on the consent agenda, the minutes from 5 August, commission minutes, work session minutes from 5 August. Item A, CUP 2225, a time extension of 1400 West Beacon. Item 1, Modern Zoning Code CAR 240007 at North Whitewater Park Boulevard. And that's it.
Very good.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. I have a second from Commissioner Moore. And just for clarity, John, you were moving to approve the consent agenda, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair, approved.
Great. Thank you very much. Commissioner Moore, you're in agreement with approving the consent agenda?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any further discussion on consent? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Mooney,
Yes.
Seha,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. We'll go ahead then. We've got 2 items to hear this evening. We'll start with item number 2, which again is CAR 24-10 Studio H Architects, 787 and 793 East Park Center Boulevard. First, we're going to hear from staff and Sabrina. Hi, Sabrina.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Commissioner Moore.
I would like to recuse from item number 2 as my former firm is part of some improvements to the fitness facility to the south.
Okay, very good. So Commissioner Moore will be taking this item off. Sabrina, please.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The item before you is a request for a modification of a development agreement on approximately 1.6 acres in an MX1 DA zone. The subject property is located on the west side of Park Center Boulevard between Pennsylvania Street and Apple Street. There is an existing transit line along Park Center Boulevard adjacent to the site, and identified bikeways in the area are shown on this slide. In
Mr. Chair.
1998,
Is the public seeing these since they're normally displaying?
Visible down below. Is it visible here? I don't know. Yeah, we're not seeing them up here. Thanks, John. Well, we're not watching YouTube.
Mr. Chair, do
I'm
you
kidding.
do all have your screens up? I see Milt's not here, so everyone can continue. All right. And you
Yeah.
guys can see it out in the audience? Okay, well then we'll go ahead.
Okay, take 2. The item before you is a request for a modification of a development agreement on approximately 1.6 acres in an MX1 DA zone. The subject property is located on the west side of Park Center Boulevard between Pennsylvania Street and Apple Street. There's an existing transit line along Park Center Boulevard adjacent to the site, and identified bikeways in the area are shown on this slide. In 1998, the Boise City Council approved a rezone of the subject property and the adjacent parcels from R2 to LOD and C1D with a development agreement. The development proposed at that time was comprised of a large two-story office building for a medical insurance provider, a second smaller office building, and a small retail building. The development agreement required compliance with the conceptual site plan shown on this slide and placed restrictions regarding setbacks, parking locations, building heights, and building placements. On December 1st, 2023, the modern zoning code took effect, and the LOD and C1D zones from the previous code were converted to the current MX1 zone. However, the restrictions of the development agreement remained in effect despite the change in the zoning designation of the property. The applicant now requests to modify the existing DA to allow the two vacant parcels located at 787 and 793 Park Center Boulevard to be developed in accordance with the standards of the MX1 zone. The planning team is supportive of the requested modification as the standards of the MX1 zone support the development of neighborhood serving commercial, institutional, and residential uses that are compatible with the existing commercial uses and residential neighborhoods in the vicinity. As shown on this slide, the standards of the MX1 zone also support many of the same goals of the original DA, such as promoting a pedestrian-oriented streetscape with buildings towards the street and parking to the sides or the rear. The MX1 zone is also subject to neighborhood transition standards, which require increased setbacks, building height step downs, and screening and buffering along property lines that abut existing residential zones. If the modification is approved, the applicant proposes to construct a mixed-use development containing commercial and multifamily residential uses on the property located at 787 Park Center Boulevard, as shown in the conceptual plan on this slide. The applicant has not provided a development proposal for 793 Park Center Boulevard at this time. However, future development of both parcels will be subject to design review. Additional entitlements, such as conditional use permits, may also be required in the future, depending on the nature of future development proposals. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of the DA modification, and I'll stand for any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Sabrina. Next, we'll hear from the applicant team. Yeah, if you don't mind, just maybe coming up here real quick and just checking in so we can have folks online.
Name and address.
Yep, please.
Jessica Heggie, 306 Dorothy 2nd Street, Meridian, Idaho, 83642.
Okay.
I don't have anything to add to Sabrina. She's very thorough.
Okay. All right.
you.
Short and sweet. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, next we'll hear from the Neighborhood App Association, which I assume Eric will be presenting.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. Eric Berg, 1301 South Grant Ave, Boise, Idaho. There's a saying that before one tears down a fence, one must know why it was built in the first place. It's not that changing things can't be done, but one must understand why things were the way they were first before making those changes. It's because of this that the board of the Southeast Neighborhood Association voted unanimously to oppose dissolving the development agreement as outlined in CAR 24-00010. While we understand the agreement requires modification in order for development to occur on the property, many of the conditions remain relevant and must be retained. The development agreement requires there be no buildings adjacent to the residential property across the property line. This is an important part of the reasonable expectation that the neighbors had for the development of this land when they decided to live next to it. For over 2 decades, the reasonable expectation established by the development agreement was that the bulk of the building would be facing Park Center. Fortunately, the MX1 does provide for that. However, to keep any buildings across and to be back from the property line, we ask that this part of the development agreement be kept or put into any conditions of approval on any proposed project. We understand and support the example site plan that reflects this principle and would be okay with, in place of a development agreement, a requirement that the final site plan be largely similar to the one proposed. This area of Park Center was developed with the concept of connectivity between parcels as core to the layout of the projects. In order for this to continue, we ask that the requirements for connectivity between parcels be maintained in the development agreement. Again, this could also be handled by requiring a final site plan largely similar to the one proposed. We understand that the new zoning code will address most of the concerns that the development agreement goes over, but not all, and feel it vital to promote the best projects to keep a mechanism in place to follow the best practices outlined in the original development agreement. We look forward to our new neighbors and are glad to see this parcel taking shape. We only ask that it be done so with respect to reasonable expectations of those around it, and hope to see a project along the lines of the one proposed in the sample site plan. I stand for any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Berg. We'll go ahead then and open up for questions by the commission to the applicant, to staff, and or to Mr. Berg.
Mr. Chair,
John, please.
question for Mr. Berg regarding the, so Eric, you mentioned that there are many conditions are relevant in the existing development agreement. And it sounds like the big issue the neighborhood has is you want the buildings facing Park Center. So I'm just clarifying your position, which is you don't want those MX buildings with the MX1 setbacks in the parking area that's identified in this tentative site plan that the applicant proposed. Is that accurate?
Chair and Commissioner, yes, that is accurate. Effectively, the long and short of it is that the Southeast Neighborhood Association would support the conceptual site plan. Our only worry is that if you take away the development agreement, there are developments that could be done under MX1 that would have buildings adjacent to the residential on that back property line. And those folks, you know, and they've bought in the last 20 years, have a reasonable expectation that there wasn't going to be a building right up against the property line due to the development agreement. So yes, that's exactly our concern. Effectively, if the project proposed were to come to us with the current site plan, we'd be all for it. Our only worry is that if there aren't conditions put in or remnants of the development agreement that live on, it would be possible to develop this with a site plan that wouldn't meet those expectations.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, please.
follow for staff.
Yep, please, John.
So staff, what's the staff's position and city's position on how this would be perceived as under development of that property under MX1?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, the MX1 zone inherently requires the building to be oriented towards the street with the parking to the side or the rear. I would also note that on these properties, there is a 30-foot easement that abuts the western property line that would preclude the construction of buildings in that area. So I think inherently that addresses the neighborhood association's concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you, John. So Sabrina, the access easement is platted? Is it?
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay, okay, very good. Sorry, and then one more, that same access easement, I assume, affects the parcels to the south, correct? I mean, that extends.
Yes. that's
So that
correct.
connectivity issue that Mr. Berg brought up is essentially resolved via that access easement.
Correct. And the expectation would be that future development of these properties would utilize the existing vehicular access points, and code does require those to be consolidated to the maximum extent possible. So
Terrific. Okay. All right. I guess to the applicant, is that your guys' understanding as well of the situation regarding the access easements and connectivity? If you don't mind, sorry. Have to get your steps in.
There's a utilities running down that easement as well. So not only is it a cross access easement along all of those properties, there's already utilities in there. So yes, that will be maintained from that. And I believe there's also a setback along those residential, even in an MX1.
Mhm.
So no matter what, we can't put a building all the way on that property line.
Okay, very good. So in general, you don't have any concerns with the items that were brought forward by the neighborhood association?
No. And we've gotten quite a bit farther into design since we've been through this application process. So our site plan is very, very similar to what was submitted at that time. And I would welcome Mr. Berg to reach out. We'd happy to share that with him and get any feedback. But yeah, I think it'll be very, very similar to what you guys are looking at now.
Okay, terrific. Very good. Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
And Sabrina, this application, they're just moving on into design review after this, or they have to go for a CUP or anything additional?
Mr. Chair, for the uses that are proposed in this conceptual site plan, only design review would be required. If there were different uses proposed down the line, then a CUP might be triggered.
Okay, very good. Okay. Any other questions, gang? No? Okay, all right. We'll go ahead then and move on into public testimony. We'll see if there's anybody. I guess if any of you all would like to testify, public testimony is open. You'll have 3 minutes to testify. Any takers? You guys are good? Okay. We'll go ahead then and move to folks online. If you're online and would like to testify, please go ahead and raise your hand. All right, very good. Looks like we don't have any takers there either. So we'll go ahead and close public testimony. And this is typically the time for the applicant to rebut anything heard during public testimony. You can certainly yield that time. Very good. Applicant's going to yield rebuttal. So we'll go ahead and bring this item back before the commission to render a decision.
Mr. Chair,
John, please.
I move that we recommend approval of CAR 24-00010 with all the terms and conditions as stated in the staff report.
Okay.
Second.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Mooney with a second by Commissioner Torres. John, any final thoughts or comments?
Nothing additional. It sounds like everything is accounted for as in Mr. Berg's concerns and the neighborhood association concerns are handled based on where this application is already sitting.
Excellent. Any other comments, guys? Good? Good, Michelle? Okay. Very good. Well, let's go ahead and just move on to the vote here. Again, CAR 24-10, motion to approve by Commissioner Mooney, second by Commissioner Torres. Christina, please call the roll.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Mooney,
Yes.
Seha,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
Stone,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good luck with the project. All right. And then the last remaining item tonight is item number 3. This is CUP 24-22. Myra's? Thank you, Matt. Myra's Spanish Preschool and Daycare, LLC. Project address is 1505 South Empire Way. This is a modification of a conditional use permit to increase the maximum number of children allowed in an existing large child daycare center on 0.27 acres in R1C zone. We're going to hear from Matt Dennis from staff up first.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The item before you is a conditional use permit modification to expand an existing childcare facility located on 0.27 acres at 1505 South Empire Way in an R1C residential traditional zone. This site has accommodated a childcare since approximately 2019 when it received an administrative approval for a group childcare home for 7 to 12 children. Then in 2022, the applicant received approval of a hearing level conditional use permit to expand that childcare up to 25 children. And now the applicant wishes to expand the childcare once more to accommodate up to 40 children. The site is uniquely suited to accommodate the proposed expansion and is supported by Blueprint Boise. It's compatible with the general neighborhood, which consists of commercial uses adjacent to the south and detached single-family houses to the west, north, and east. Additionally, it is within 300 feet of Grace Jordan Elementary School and within 600 feet of a bus stop on Overland Road, which is also designated as an arterial and level 3 bikeway. Finally, the site is located within the Overland and Empire Way Neighborhood Activity Center, which has been designated to serve the central bench and to promote the availability of small scale and retail service uses. As such, the proposed use is not expected to create any material negative impacts to the surrounding area. The site meets the dimensional standards to accommodate the expansion. The existing outdoor space is 2,500 square feet with no changes proposed, and a condition of approval limits the number of children accessing the outdoor space to 25 at any given time, thus meeting the requirement to provide 100 square feet of outdoor space per child. The perimeter of the site is fenced and meets the screening requirements of the zoning code. The site provides 6 parking spaces with 4 in the rear and 2 in the front, where 5 are required based on the size of the childcare. The expansion of the proposal is proposed to be accommodated within the original attached garage and basement of the structure outlined here in red, and requires the approval of proper building permits to convert these rooms into space suitable for the childcare. The conversion of the garage will allow for an increase of 5 children for a total of 30, and the conversion of the basement will allow for an increase of 10 children for a total of 40. The applicant intends to convert the garage first and then continue operation while converting the basement at a later time. In total, the structure meets the dimensional standard for indoor space by providing approximately 1,485 square feet of gross floor area, which is equal to about 37 square feet per child. Shown here is the use-specific standard table for childcares. Of note, it lists the locational-based criteria for where childcares, as in childcares containing 25 or more children, can be located. It requires these large childcares to be located on a collector or arterial street or within 300 feet of a school ground. And as previously mentioned, the subject property meets this criterion as it's located within 300 feet of Grace Jordan Elementary School. The recommended site-specific conditions of approval are summarized on your screen. As previously mentioned, these require all proper building permits to be obtained prior to expanding the number of children, and list the amount of children that can be accommodated after each conversion. And finally, limits the number of children utilizing the outdoor space to 25 at any given time. Late correspondence was received in the form of public opposition, wherein a neighbor expressed concerns regarding the proposed expansion's effect on noise and traffic generation in the neighborhood, citing safety concerns with driving speeds and on-street parking causing blind spots. However, the structure meets the site-specific, the use-specific standards to accommodate the expansion, as all dimensional and parking standards have been met as proposed, pending approval of forthcoming building permits. It is recommended that neighbors contact code compliance if clear vision triangles are continually being obstructed, as condition of approval number 12 requires all clear vision triangles remain clear of obstructions. And in conclusion, the planning team recommends approval, and I will stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Matt. We'll sit tight on questions for the moment, and we'll hear from the applicant team, who I assume is online staff.
Sí. This
Hello.
is the interpreter, Maria Gonzalez Cárdenas, speaking on behalf of MIDA.
Hi
Are
there.
you able to hear me?
Yeah,
Can
we
you
can
hear me?
hear you. Yes, hello.
Okay. Hello. I've been handed a statement from MIDA to read, but I wanted to be sure that there's enough time. What was the time that MIDA has?
You have 10 minutes as
Okay.
the applicant. And if you
Great.
could just you could also just give us your address for the record, please.
Oh, yeah. That is in the statement that Ms. Mayra Ramirez Fuentes has prepared. Okay. Thank you very much, Planning and Zoning Commission commissioners. English is my second language, and I am still practicing. I, Mayra Ramirez Fuentes, am here as the director of Mayra Spanish Preschool and Daycare LLC, which is located at 1505 South Empire Way in Boise, Idaho, zip code 83705. I am currently operating in my 5th year as an owner and teacher, plus leading 5 teachers at the preschool. My school offers a high-quality bilingual preschool education. There is a huge need for high-quality childcare, which I provide with an Idaho Star certification. I also hold a state of Idaho quality program called STARS to quality and bachelor's degree in family and consumer science. I want to assure the planning and zoning commissioners that my daycare only plays music during 3 annual events to celebrate Mother's Day and Parents' Day, held at the same time, Halloween and graduation. These events are only from 4 to 6 p.m. and comply with the City of Boise noise level ordinance. I also don't ever let our students leave the fenced-in daycare area while outside as required by Central District Health. The only time they would be outside the backyard is to go on a field trip and to be dropped off and picked up by their parents or guardians. The public comment was very unexpected, as no one appeared when we held a neighborhood meeting on July 12, 2024, from 6 to 6:30 p.m. The neighborhood meeting was a requirement for this CUP 24-00022 planning modification as required by the City of Boise Planning Department. All accusations on noise level and even whether or not the daycare van was moved are false. Our daycare van picks up children in a safe manner from Monday through Friday, generally from 3 to 3:15 Monday through Friday. We have not hindered the neighborhood, and this property is only operated as a daycare Monday through Friday during the approved hours, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. There is no additional traffic on the weekends and holidays. The accusation of the public testimonial that the housing prices will drop due to a lack of care is unsupported. There is a strip mall and a mechanics shop located within 100 to 200 feet. How are those negatively impacting home prices? The sound of children playing outside is heard at the daycare between 11:15 a.m. to noon, and in the afternoon from 3:40 to 5 p.m. Is it louder than the traffic on Overland Road that sits less than 400 feet away? I would predict that the majority of us can go to my daycare right now on any given day and find that the traffic is louder than the noise level of the preschool children who are laughing while playing within the daycare grounds. As for parking, staff and parents utilize the back parking lot that I invested in paving and making major improvements and pulling extensive building permits for these. They have utilized the back parking lot ever since we have expanded after the original planning application CUP 22-00006. In the last few years, the City of Boise passed multiple policies to support the daycares due to the high demand for these. A daycare service is a place of learning, growth, and I hope to continue leading and growing my business with the support of the City of Boise, our parents and neighbors. Thank you for your time. Mayra Ramirez Fuentes.
Okay. Thank you very much for that statement.
Muy bien, gracias por esa declaración.
We will go ahead and see if we have anyone from the neighborhood association with us. I don't believe that we do. Okay, we'll go ahead then and bring this back to us for questions to staff or the applicants. Any takers?
Mr. Chair.
John, please.
Yeah, I've got a few questions. First one's to answer, it's for staff. The way I understand the code and the modern zoning code is that this is listed as not a commercial activity, but a public, institutional, and civic use. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, yes, that the childcare use is listed under the public institutional uses. That's correct.
Okay, great. A follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So the parking and the traffic flow would be a common refrain from anyone that be opposed to something like this. And I was trying to figure out how the code handles. It seems to be pretty loose when it says provide adequate lot sizes for parking, child pickup, play area, screening, setbacks, and all that. And it sounds like that's up to the planning director, and there's not a whole lot of code direction on that. Am I missing something in the code?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, the dimensional standards would be the 100 square feet per outdoor, and then the 35 square feet for the indoor.
Okay, Mr. Chair, follow.
Yeah.
So, but I'm specifically talking about if this childcare or anyone grew, when does traffic flow start becoming a land use issue and having enough space on the parcel to properly accommodate traffic? And I don't see anything in the code that makes a break on when they need to provide more space so that we don't get into that CUP thing of, is there enough site? Is the site large enough?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, thank you for the follow-up. So part of the submission, the submittal requirements is a mobility plan. Part of the mobility plan would be, and in the case where the childcare is to get to be the larger to where you were mentioning, the mobility plan would be required to ensure that there's adequate walkways, right, for accessible routes to and from parking lots and things of that nature. And so that was submitted for this application.
Oh, did I miss that? Is it in our agenda packet? I missed that, I think.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, I don't think it was included in the packet, but the site plan shows 5-foot wide paths, and then there was also what was labeled the mobility plan just showed the bike route or the bike route and the bus route.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair, follow. So the bike route leads me into a bike question. So also another thing that's not accounted for is bike parking for this type of exit or allowed use. Can you talk more about that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, bike parking is not listed within that table of required bike parking. That required bike parking is actually pretty small. There's only about 5 to 10. So in cases where there's not a specific box for specific use, one of two things can happen. There's either a directed determination, which is also kind of linked to the, kind of best fit for whatever is within that table. So with 6 existing bike parking spaces, and that was meeting the old code requirement, in fact, exceeding it. So the expansion, the planning team felt that was adequate. And then additionally, the age of the students is also incorporated into that part of the directed determination as well. So with this being, on an arterial street, on a collector or in close proximity to 2 bikeways, that was incorporated, right? So with 6 existing parking spaces and younger kids, there's probably less of a demand for bike parking. So that was also kind of included into that. But overall, the planning team felt that 6 was adequate.
Mr. Chair, so the 6 parking spaces, can you, is that page 122 on our agenda packet? I'm seeing a picture of the bike.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, I know that there was, it's within the site photos. I'm not exactly sure what page, but I can pull it up.
Yeah, I think it's page 122, just for the other commissioners. And I bring up a point that if that is in fact the rack that we're calling 6 parking spaces, I don't think that's really 6 bike parking spaces. So now it gets into the question, is it 6? How many bike parking spaces is it really? And do we really need that many, since the code doesn't really address the issue? And in fact, code page 270, those are prohibited bike racks, those pictures that are shown there. So how did we miss that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, the installation of that bike parking was required for that original CUP, the CUP 22-6. So, that's already been approved. And again, the planning team didn't feel that additional bike parking was required based on the site or the proposal.
Right, yes, Mr. Chair, so sorry to poke on this, but so let's look at code page 270. And if we, the city, asked the applicant to put in those bike racks in the 22 year, then I think we made a mistake, or the new zoning code has prohibited that rack now.
Yeah, maybe staff can maybe dig on that topic for a second. We can move on. If anybody else has any other questions? No, these are good. Tony's good. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Ladies, yeah. Please, Jennifer.
I've got a couple questions on the building.
Yeah, sure.
So, and this is, I think it's a question for staff. It's a little bit unclear. There's a lot of talk about the proper building permits, but there's already some stuff installed. Is this just referring to the proper building permits for the basement and the garage? And there's already a building permit for the main. That's correct.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, after the original CUP, or maybe even after the, yeah, it must have been the CUP 22-6, the applicant was at that point required to bring those designated classrooms up to commercial standards. So that floor plan that I showed kind of with the green and red outlines showed which rooms have received that proper building occupancy to support the childcare and which ones haven't. So the remaining ones are just the garage and the basement.
Sure. And Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
just a little bit of a follow-up on that.
Sure.
Where does the required indoor square foot per child come from? Is that based off of building code?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, that's a use-specific standard for the childcare, so that can be found in the use-specific standards.
And Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
maybe just to clarify, is there, I guess, are you aware of kind of how that 35 square foot per child was kind of came from, where that actually came from in general? No.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, I can tell you that it was carried forth from the old, the legacy zoning code.
Sure.
Before that, I'm not sure exactly where it came from.
And then, Mr. Chair, one more. So there are a few pictures in here that say, underneath them, they say not currently counted as an occupancy. Do you know what that means?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, some of those pictures are just showing the areas that are planned to be converted. So that would be the garage and the basement, like we said. Currently, those have a separate occupancy, a separate commercial occupancy that allows them to act as storage, but they can't accommodate educational activity within there. So that's what those building permits would be required for, would be to bring that up to educational standards.
Sure. And Mr. Chair, well, one more.
Mhm.
So say, for instance, the stairs to the basement are too narrow for that occupancy to exist in that basement. Does that modify or void any modification that we're making today?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, the condition, I think it's condition number 3, or it could be number 2, the one that's split into part A and part B. The reasoning for that was so that the applicant could convert the garage, which is their plan to convert the garage, continue operating, and then try to convert the basement. So that conversion of the garage will allow them to accommodate 5 more children, up to 30. And if the basement can't be, brought up to standards, then that wouldn't limit them from utilizing that garage. So they would be capped at 30 at that point.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, makes sense. Michelle, did you have any questions? Nope. Okay, great.
Mr. Chair, I've got one
Okay.
strange one. The opposition letter that we received in late correspondence, process-wise, how do we handle that normally? That's the first time I've ever seen one that was kind of anonymous.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, my understanding is that in order for somebody to be considered a party of record and therefore appeal, they have to give their name and address. I had followed up with that correspondent and they did not provide their name, only a PO box. So my understanding is that they are not eligible to be a party of record and therefore can't appeal the decision.
Interesting. Good question. Matt, I'm just curious, so we have the original, we had a administrative approval for in-home childcare in 19, and then the CUP and the variance in 22. Since any of those applications have been submitted and approved, have there been any complaints filed with code compliance, or have there been any issues on the property with this use?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, very good. And do you agree generally with the hours of operation as you understand they operate, as stated by the applicant in their testimony?
Mr. Chair, yes, I do.
Okay, very good. Okay, that's it for questions for me. Anybody else? One final call?
Mr. Chair, I could follow up on the bicycle parking. So looking at the legacy code, we had no discernible bicycle rack requirements there. Like with our new code, we have pictures and we show exactly what we'd like to see. We did not have that under the legacy code. So with the 6 bicycle parking spaces that I can't remember how many were required at that time, but with the installation, we didn't really have any jurisdiction over saying yay or nay on that. That would have gone through design review. And we felt that it would be an additional burden to make them replace what's already in there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mr. Chair, so to clarify for staff then, so is that the rack that's pictured in our packet? Is that an allowed rack or not?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, that is not an allowed bicycle rack within the modern zoning code.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, staff. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll go ahead and see if there's anybody else online. We'll open this up for any public testimony. So if you are on, we have no one present in chambers here in the audience. So if you're online and would like to testify on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand and we'll call on you. Okay, looks like we have maybe Miss Aguilar. Miss Aguilar, once we're doing a little switcheroo here on our tech here at City Hall. We'll get you the ability to talk here in a second. You have 3 minutes to give your testimony.
You may come off mute and speak.
Hi, my name is Marian Aguilar. My address is 6975 West Winston Lane. I am currently a mother of Leah Aguilar, who attends the daycare since 2020. I've had my previous child there since 2019, and I am just appalled from the neighborhood's regard about loud noise and parking. Myra Spanish Preschool has done a lot of requirements met. She has done a very well job converting a home into a childcare. All children there seem to have the space needed. Again, these are for kids, I believe, 18 months old to 5 years old, which is when they usually go to kindergarten. My daughter will be there for 1 more year, and then she will convert into kindergarten within my district area. Right now, I don't have a reliable childcare within my area, so I would really like to keep the childcare open there. It is in a safe space. There is parking lot for me to go in for the 5-10 minutes tops that it will take me to drop off and pick up. And same thing with other parents. I don't usually stay there longer. And I also believe it's not none of the parents go in and out fast because we have children in the car. We are parents. We have kids that go in there. We know that there's a school zone. We are coming off of Overland high speed road and have to slow down to make the turn. So I don't see any speeding. Thank you very much for your time. And that's all I needed to say.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Aguilar. Appreciate that. Anybody else online? Go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to testify. All right. I think we're all set there. We'll go ahead and close public testimony. I guess to Myra and Maria, this is typically the time where the applicant can rebut any statements made during public testimony. You are certainly welcome to yield that time, or you are also welcome to make any final statements as well. Okay.
No, I think everything is fine.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and bring this item back before the commission to render a decision. Again, this is CUP 24-22.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Torres, please.
I move that we approve CUP 24-22, a modification of a conditional use permit at 1505 South Empire Way with all the conditions in the staff report.
Great, thank you, Tony.
I'll second that, Mr.
great.
Chairman.
Thank you, Esther. Appreciate that. We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Torres with a second by Commissioner Seha. Tony, any statements?
Yeah, I just will point out, I mean, this seems like a good use of the space. These are the kinds of things we want under a modern zoning code. And I don't see anything that conflicts with the modern zoning code aside from the bike parking that we discussed pretty extensively. I also would note that city policy is to try to encourage more daycare options for families because daycare is really, really expensive and kind of scarce at the moment. So I just think this is I don't see any reason to deny this project, and I do think it's a good project for the under the code and for the property.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Esther?
Mr. Chair, yes, I too am going to be supporting the planning staff recommendation for approval. I echo what my colleague here has had to say. Childcare has been a challenge in just listening to friends and members of the community express their challenges with childcare and affordability as well. And then I just wanted to thank the planning staff. I know we talked about the bike rack at great length, but it may not meet the current requirements for our code. But it is very important that if there is something, in my opinion, if there is something there that can still be used, that it's left there for those parents or whomever who lives nearby that wants to ride their bike and pick up or drop off a child. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Esther.
Mr. Chair.
Jennifer?
I will also be in support of the motion. I think it's, it makes sense, the location, it's proximity to the elementary school, it's proximity to Overland. I think that meets code and makes sense to me. Right off of Overland, in fact, and directly adjacent to some commercial property. I think that the use and the intensity is logical and that feels comfortable for me, that it's, kind of a natural transition almost. I think, I appreciate staff's flexibility on the building permit piece with an existing building. Sometimes it can be kind of tricky. So I appreciate writing in that in a way that can allow for some flexibility there. And just, I think it's a good project. So.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Good, Michelle? Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll also be supporting the motion. I appreciate the applicant's thoroughness in their application materials and in their approach to this project. I recall when this came through the CUP back in 22, and we had some pretty good discussions about proximities to the school and to Overland Road and, being adjacent to commercial and also on the end of the block as well. So, it's pretty ideally suited for this sort of use, and it's obviously been a success. And I wish them all the best as they move forward with the application and the improvements there at the site. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and call the roll. Again, we've got a motion to approve CUP 24-22 with a motion by Commissioner Torres and a second by Commissioner Seha. Christina, please call the roll.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Mooney,
Yes.
Seha,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
Doan,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay, very good. Thank you, staff. Good luck with your project. And that does it for this evening. We are adjourned.